there is a guest that arrives uninvited. It slips through the cracks of your sleep, finds you in the quiet moments, and sits at the edge of your thoughts when you are trying to focus. It is the question that repeats itself, the worry that loops endlessly, the knot in your chest that no amount of logic seems to untie. You have tried to ignore it, you have tried to fight it, you have tried to negotiate with it. But it remains, stubborn and immovable, a constant companion that whispers to you in the darkness of the night. This is the problem that won't let you go. And yet, have you ever considered that the very thing you are trying to escape is the thing sent to wake you up? That the frustration you feel, the restlessness that keeps you staring at the ceiling, is not a curse but a compass. It is the friction of your soul against the inertia of your life. It is the alarm clock of your spirit, ringing not to annoy you, but to remind you that you have an appointment with destiny before the rest of the world rises. The test is not in the problem itself. The test is in the first breath you take when you finally decide to face it. It is in the moment you slip out of bed while the stars are still out, leaving the comfort of your sheets, and you stand in the hushed reverence of the pre-dawn. There, in that sacred space between the darkness and the light, you have a choice. You can drag the weight of that problem into your morning like a chain, or you can lay it down in surrender, admitting that you were never meant to carry it alone. This is where the fabric of your day is woven. This is the raw material. Your reaction in the stillness, before the noise of the world begins, is the mortar that builds the fortress of your resilience. The problem that won't let you go is not asking for your panic, it is asking for your presence. It is asking you to stop running from the ache and to listen to its message. Perhaps the ache is pointing to a part of your character that needs softening, a habit that needs breaking, or a fear that needs facing. It is the friction of your current reality against your divine potential. It hurts because you are growing. It clings to you because you are on the cusp of a breakthrough, and the old shell must crack to let the new life emerge. So, do not curse the weight that keeps you grounded, and do not hate the wind that makes you stagger, because it is the same wind that teaches you how to stand firm. The problem is not your enemy, it is your instructor. The sleeplessness is not a punishment, it is a preparation. The very thing you wish would vanish is the thing that is sculpting the person you are meant to become. Let it be your springboard, not your anchor. Here is an expansion of keynote number 1 into a cohesive 500-word reflection, without subheadings, and with the requested ending sentence. When a problem refuses to release its grip on your mind, trailing you from the office to the dinner table and finally into the fragile territory of your sleep, it is natural to interpret its persistence as a form of punishment. You might convince yourself that you are being tested beyond your limits, or that the universe has singled you out for a particular brand of suffering. But this interpretation, however instinctive, is a fundamental misreading of the signal. The problem that haunts you at 3 a.m. is not a whip, it is a whisper. It is not a judge delivering a verdict, it is a physician placing a stethoscope to the chest of your soul, listening intently for what is malfunctioning beneath the surface. That persistent echo in your consciousness is actually the most honest conversation you are having with yourself, because it bypasses the defensive walls you build during the day and speaks directly to the core of your being. It is a signal that your current state of living does not align with your deeper purpose, that the mask you wear for the world has become too tight, and that your spirit is suffocating for lack of air and authenticity. The restless mind that refuses to quieten is not broken, it is brilliant, because it is doing precisely what it was designed to do, which is to alert you that something crucial has been left unattended. It is the cry of your inner compass, spinning wildly because it has lost its true north, and that spinning is not a flaw but a feature meant to drive you back to alignment. Consider the nature of a wound that has been poorly bandaged. It does not silently heal, it throbs, it aches, it sends sharp reminders throughout the day until you finally stop and tend to it properly. The pain is not the enemy, the pain is the messenger that prevents you from ignoring the infection. Similarly, the problem that stalks your quiet moments is the throb of an unaddressed question, a fear you refuse to name, a step you are afraid to take, or a truth you have buried alive and which now haunts you like a ghost demanding justice. It is a wound in your consciousness, and your sleeplessness is its fever. But here lies the profound shift in perspective. This messenger is not here to destroy you, it is here to awaken you. It is here to crack open the hardened shell of your complacency so that something new and tender can emerge. The discomfort is the friction of your soul pressing against the limitations you have accepted for yourself. It is the pain of a seed breaking through the soil, the strain of a butterfly struggling out of its cocoon. That struggle is not a mistake, it is the very mechanism of transformation. Therefore, the question is not how to silence this persistent echo, but how to listen to it with the ears of your heart. The question is not how to escape the ache, but what the ache is trying to teach you about your own neglected depths. It is calling you to a deeper honesty, a more profound surrender, and a more courageous confrontation with the parts of yourself you have kept hidden. Your soul is speaking in the only language it knows, the language of longing and unrest, and it will not be silenced until you finally turn your face toward it and ask, "What do you need me to see?" So the next time that problem refuses to release you, do not curse the night or your own weakness. Instead, recognize the midnight echo for what it truly is, a divine alarm clock set to the hour of your own reckoning, and understand that the echo will only fade when the question it carries has finally been answered by the light of your awareness. Here is an expansion of keynote number 2 into a cohesive 500-word reflection, without subheadings, and with the requested ending sentence. The problem that clings to you does not reveal its true nature in the chaos of midday, when the phone is ringing, the emails are flooding in, and the demands of the world are pulling you in 100 different directions. In those hours, the problem feels like an adversary to be outrun, a fire to be extinguished with frantic action, and you respond with the same frantic energy, throwing solutions at it like stones at a fortress, hoping one will finally breach the walls. But this approach is fundamentally flawed, because you are fighting the problem on its own turbulent terms, in its own noisy arena, where it has the advantage of distraction and haste. The true test, the moment that separates those who are merely busy from those who are truly victorious, is not how you react when the world is watching, but how you meet the problem when the world is silent, in the sacred hours before the sun breaks the horizon. That pre-dawn stillness is not merely a time of day, it is a state of being, a spiritual terrain where the noise of your ego fades and the voice of your deeper self can finally be heard. It is in this raw, unguarded space that the raw material of your entire day is forged, because your first response to the weight you carry, when there is no audience to impress and no deadline to panic over, sets the template for every subsequent reaction. If you rise in those quiet hours and immediately grasp the problem with clenched fists, replaying its details with the same anxious energy that kept you awake, you have already lost the battle before the day has even begun. You have simply carried the chains of yesterday into the dawn of today. But if you rise differently, if you meet that haunting weight with a posture of openness rather than resistance, with a breath of acceptance rather than a sigh of despair, you begin to transmute its nature. The raw material of victory is not the absence of the problem, but the quality of your presence in its company. It is the calm in your chest when your mind wants to race. It is the stillness of your hands when they want to grasp and control. It is the quiet surrender of your tongue when it wants to complain and protest. In that sacred interval, you are given the opportunity to place the problem into a different container, not the container of your fearful imagination, but the container of divine trust. You learn that your reaction is the only thing over which you have absolute sovereignty, and that sovereignty is best exercised in the silence before the world demands your attention. The dawn is the workshop of the soul, and the problem is the raw ore placed upon your anvil. You can choose to strike it with the hammer of anxiety, shattering it into pieces that will cut you, or you can choose to heat it with the fire of patience and shape it with the steady hand of faith into something that serves your growth. The way you meet the problem in those pre-dawn moments determines whether the problem will break you or build you. It is the foundation upon which the architecture of your entire day rests, and a foundation laid in panic will produce a structure of collapse, while a foundation laid in tranquil awareness will produce a fortress of unshakable peace. So do not wait for the world to quieten before you find your stillness, and do not postpone your courage until the circumstances are easier, because the circumstances will never be easier, but your heart can be made stronger in the moments when no one else is watching, and the strength you cultivate there, in the womb of the morning, will carry you through every storm the day dares to send your way. Here is an expansion of keynote number 3 into a cohesive 500-word reflection, without subheadings, and with the requested ending sentence. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from holding on too tightly, from waking each morning with the determination to squeeze the problem into submission, to wrestle it into a shape that fits your expectations, to force the door open with the sheer muscle of your will. You strategize, you plan, you replay conversations and scenarios in your mind, trying to anticipate every possible outcome so that you can remain in control. But the tighter your grip becomes, the more the problem seems to slip through your fingers, and the more exhausted you grow from the effort of clinging. This is the great paradox of the human condition. The solution you are desperately seeking is often locked behind the very door you are refusing to unlock, and the key is not more effort, but the release of effort. Surrendering the outcome is not the same as abandoning your responsibility. It is the highest form of responsibility, because it acknowledges the limits of your own power while simultaneously affirming the infinite power of the one who holds all outcomes. It is the recognition that you are a worker, not the master of the harvest, and that your duty is to plant the seed with excellence and water it with sincerity, but the growth and the fruit belong to another. When you cling to the problem with desperate hands, you are essentially saying that you do not trust the process, that you do not believe that anything good can come without your constant interference, and that the universe is chaotic and indifferent unless you impose your order upon it. This is a burden too heavy for any human frame to bear, and it is this very burden that turns your problem into a prison. But when you loosen your grasp, when you exhale the tension from your shoulders and whisper, "I have done what I can, and the rest is not mine to control," something miraculous begins to happen. The problem does not disappear, but its weight shifts. It no longer rests entirely on your fragile back, it is now shared, held in hands far more capable than your own. This surrender is not passivity, it is the ultimate act of strength, because it requires a profound courage to let go of the illusion of control. It takes far more bravery to place your trust in the unseen than to frantically manage the seen. It takes deeper faith to say, "Your will, not mine," than to insist, "My will," against all odds. The knot that has been tightening in your chest begins to loosen, not because the situation has changed, but because your relationship to it has been transformed. You are no longer the anxious general trying to command every battalion of circumstance, you are now the humble servant who plants the field and sleeps peacefully, knowing that the rain will come or it will not, and that both outcomes contain a wisdom you cannot yet perceive. This shift is the key that unlocks the cage of worry. The problem remains, but you are no longer trapped with it, you are now standing outside the cage, observing it with clarity rather than being consumed by it. Your hands, once clenched in futile resistance, are now open, ready to receive whatever comes, whether it is the answer you hoped for or a path you never imagined. And in that openness, you discover a freedom that no solution could ever provide, because the solution to the external problem is temporary, but the internal liberation is eternal, and it comes only when you finally stop trying to force the door and simply trust the hand that holds the key. Here is an expansion of keynote number 4 into a cohesive 500-word reflection, without subheadings and with the requested ending sentence. There is a tendency within the human spirit to seek comfort above all else, to crave the smooth path, the easy resolution, the gentle breeze that does not challenge your balance. When the problem arrives and begins to chafe against your peace, your first instinct is to numb the friction, to distract yourself, to find any escape route that leads away from the discomfort. But what if the ache you are trying so desperately to anesthetize is not a malfunction of your existence but its very engine? What if that gnawing sensation in the pit of your stomach, that restless dissatisfaction that refuses to be placated, is actually the sound of your soul stretching, straining against the confines of a life too small for its divine ambition? The problem that won't let you go is not a sign that you are broken, it is a sign that you are breaking open. It is the friction generated when the person you currently are rubs against the person you are destined to become, and that friction, though painful, is the very force that polishes the rough stone into a jewel. Every great transformation in history, every leap of consciousness, every breakthrough of the human spirit has been preceded by this exact sensation of uncomfortable stretching. The butterfly does not resent the struggle of the cocoon, it is the struggle that forces the fluid into its wings, making them strong enough for flight. The seed does not curse the darkness of the soil, it is the pressure of the earth that compels it to push upward toward the light. And you, in your moments of deepest unease, are undergoing the same sacred process. The problem is the soil, the ache is the pressure, and your growth is the inevitable result of refusing to remain in the comfortable shallows. But growth is never comfortable, because growth requires the death of what you have been. It requires shedding the skin of old habits, old fears, old identities that no longer serve you. That shedding is painful, and the pain is exactly what you are feeling when the problem refuses to release its hold. It is the ache of your own becoming. It is the labor pain of a new version of yourself struggling to be born. You cannot rush this process, and you cannot avoid it, because the soul insists on its own expansion, and it will manufacture the necessary friction through circumstances, through relationships, through internal turmoil, until you finally pay attention and cooperate with the transformation. The problem is not an obstacle to your growth, it is the vehicle of your growth. It is the chisel in the hands of the divine sculptor, each strike perfectly measured to chip away the excess stone and reveal the masterpiece hidden within. So when the ache intensifies, do not run from it. Sit with it. Ask it what it is teaching you. Ask it what part of you is ready to be released and what part of you is ready to be born. The discomfort is the curriculum, and the classroom is your own heart. Every sleepless night is a lesson, every anxious thought is a question, every tear is a purification. You are not falling apart, you are falling into alignment. You are not losing your way, you are losing the false paths that were never yours to walk. The pain is the midwife of your purpose, and it will not cease until you have been delivered into the fullness of who you were always meant to be, because the ache of awakening is the only force powerful enough to shatter the prison of your own making, and once shattered, you will finally step into the open air of your true potential. Here is an expansion of keynote number 5 into a cohesive 500-word reflection, without subheadings, and with the requested ending sentence. The most profound shift in your relationship with the problem that haunts you comes when you finally stop asking how to get rid of it and start asking what it is giving you. For so long, you have perceived this weight as an anchor dragging you downward, a chain fastened to your ankle that prevents you from running freely toward your goals. You have spent countless hours devising escape plans, searching for the lever that will pry this burden from your shoulders, believing that only its removal can bring you peace. But this perception, however instinctive, is a fundamental misreading of the nature of your trial. What if the weight you are carrying is not holding you back but holding you up? What if the very thing you wish would disappear is the very thing keeping you grounded, focused, and alive to a depth you would never otherwise access? Consider the eagle that soars to magnificent heights, yet it does not fly without the resistance of the wind beneath its wings. The wind does not push the eagle down, the wind lifts it upward, and the eagle's strength is measured not by its ability to avoid the wind but by its ability to harness it. Similarly, the problem that presses upon you is the wind beneath your spiritual wings. It is the resistance that builds your muscle, the opposition that sharpens your resolve, the pressure that compresses your raw potential into a diamond of unshakable faith. Without the weight, you would float aimlessly, untethered and unmoored, drifting through life without the friction that generates heat, and without the heat that generates light. The problem is not your enemy, it is your trainer, your coach, your relentless instructor who refuses to let you settle for mediocrity. It pushes you to pray when you would rather sleep, to reflect when you would rather distract, to seek when you would rather remain lost. It is the guardian at the gate of your higher self, ensuring that you do not enter the hall of greatness without having paid the toll of struggle. When you shift your grip on the problem, when you stop trying to drop it and instead learn to carry it with grace, something extraordinary happens. The burden is transformed. It no longer feels like a punishment, it begins to feel like a privilege. You realize that this weight has been entrusted to you because you are strong enough to bear it, because the one who assigned it knows the capacity of your frame better than you know it yourself. You were not given this cross because you are weak, you were given it because you are capable, and the carrying of it is precisely what reveals your capability to yourself and to the world. The problem becomes your identity sculpting tool, carving away the excess and leaving behind only what is essential. It becomes your compass, pointing you away from the trivial and toward the eternal. It becomes your teacher, instructing you in patience, humility, perseverance, and trust. And one day, perhaps sooner than you expect, you will look back at this weight and realize that you would not trade it for a life of ease, because the ease would have robbed you of your depth, your wisdom, your very soul. The problem that would not let you go has become the wings that will not let you fall, and you discover that the grip you once cursed was actually the grip that kept you from plummeting into the abyss of an empty, unexamined life.